Hi, Tobias. Great to see you as always. Igor Kirillov killed. It was a bomb, apparently, in an e-scooter. That's the latest that we're hearing. What do you make of it all?
Well, both sides, Russia and Ukraine, know there's just 1 month left until Donald Trump returns to the White House. And that is affecting the behavior on the battleground. And in a month's time, talks are likely to start about a potential ceasefire, about a potential deal. So every opportunity is being taken to gain territory, to seek advantage, to prosecute existing plans to cause harm. And that, I think, is what we're seeing play out here. So the killing of Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov, we can only assume was done by Ukraine, is a major event, though. The removal of a senior military officer responsible for nuclear weapons, not on the battlefield in Ukraine, but in Moscow, just miles from the Kremlin. So this will be an embarrassment for Putin. He cannot hide this from the Russian people, who generally are not supportive of this war. And I'm afraid I would expect a major retaliation on the Russian side. It's interesting why this general was targeted, and it actually affects Britain to some degree, because only yesterday he was charged in Ukraine in absentia for authorizing the use of chemical weapons. And it's those very same use of chemical weapons that Britain has issued sanctions against this general. Russia is a signatory of the Chemical Weapons Convention, and I'm afraid it's the ugly side of battle that a lot of us assumed Russia would venture into if they started losing, or if there was a time pressure against them to gain Czech territory before, as I say, Trump returns to the White House.
You'll have Trump.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
So sorry, Tobias. What impact do you think President Trump will have on the war in Ukraine?
I'm afraid him coming in, he's frustrated with the amount of time it's taken to get to where we are. This has been running now for almost 3 years. We, the West, I'm afraid, have not done enough to support Ukraine, and it's ended up with this stalemate. And Trump is coming in, as he did before, saying, I'm not interested in supporting these wars. I want it concluded. And so he's made it very clear he will pull American support for the war in all its forms, whether it be direct military support or indeed otherwise. And that leaves a huge question as to whether Europe, the rest of NATO, can continue on its own, which they can't. And he said he wants to get all the stakeholders around the table. And as I stressed, this is what's going to see perhaps the end of this war in its current phase, probably some form of ceasefire agreed. I stress that this is an embarrassment for the rest of NATO. We should have prosecuted this war. We should have helped Ukraine. This is a democracy on the edge of Europe, right next to NATO, the most formidable, potent military alliance the world has ever seen. And we weren't able to put this fire out. And that's the consequence here, is what then will Russia do next? Because Russia will simply be given time and space to rearm, regroup, and advance in another part of Eastern Europe, because there's an ideological threat that he now poses to the rest of Europe. And that's the bigger challenge that I'm afraid we're still in denial about.
Let me just ask you, while I've got you, Tobias, about this alleged Chinese spy who got right to the heart of the British royal family, diplomats and politicians as well, it would seem. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, this isn't about, I know it's want to talk of it, see it as a royal story. It's not. It's actually about what China does, an ever assertive, ever aggressive China. And Russia does this as well. It's part of a gray zone war, if you like. Daily cyber attacks, espionage, intellectual property theft, and so forth, the spread of disinformation. This is what both countries are doing from afar to penetrate into our society and seek vulnerable people. I mean, there's big questions why Prince Andrew was stripped perhaps of some of the support for the royal household that could have offered better advice as to who should be allowed near him. I mean, that is a separate question. The bigger question for us is, where else has China been able to achieve this, to push people into deep in our society, in academia, in commercial interests, in other areas of politics and diplomacy? We are absent of a clear strategy on how we should handle this rising China. And until that is clarified, then I'm afraid we'll see this kind of gray zone war continue.